Chapter 1. Fresh Starts. The first morning of January arrived with a crisp bite in the air, the kind that made every breath feel like a clean slate. Ray Connors stood inside his greenhouse, surrounded by rows of vibrant green, the glass panes fogged with condensation from the warmth within. Outside, frost clung stubbornly to the earth, but in here, life thrived. Basil, thyme, rosemary, and a few exotic herbs whose names sounded more like spells than plants. Ray adjusted the thermostat on the climate control panel, satisfied when the numbers blinked steady. He liked precision. Plants didn't care about drama or excuses. They responded to care, consistency, and timing. People, on the other hand, well, that was another story. He brushed soil from his hands and glanced toward the far corner where Rex, his golden retriever, sprawled like royalty on a bed of burlap sacks. Rex wagged his tail lazily, thumping against the floor in a rhythm that said, "I'm happy, but if you have snacks, I'll be happier." "Don't even think about it," Ray said, reaching for a tray of seedlings. "You already had breakfast." Rex responded with a soulful look that could melt glaciers. Before Ray could steel himself against the canine guilt trip, a blur of tawny fur darted past his boots. Mufasa, his bobcat with the attitude of a monarch, leapt onto the workbench and sat squarely in the middle of the seedlings like a king claiming his throne. Ray groaned. "Really? You had the entire floor, and you picked the most expensive herbs I own?" Mufasa blinked slowly, unimpressed. Rex perked up, tail wagging faster now, as if cheering on the chaos. Ray carefully lifted the bobcat, ignoring the indignant flick of its tufted ears, and set him on the floor. "You're lucky you're cute," he muttered, inspecting the damage. A few crushed sprigs, nothing catastrophic. This was his life: plants, pets, and peace. No drama. No late-night texts asking for rescues from bad dates. No wondering if someone saw him as a partner or a pit stop. He'd had enough of that in his 20s. Now, at 32, he wanted something real. Someday. But not at the expense of everything he'd built. His phone buzzed on the counter, pulling him from his thoughts. A new order notification. Ray swiped the screen and whistled low. "Exotic basil, Thai lime leaves, and purple shiso," he read aloud. "For Saturday." Rex tilted his head as if considering the logistics. "That's a big one," Ray said, already calculating shelf space and growth cycles. The order came from Le Jardin, the most upscale restaurant in town. Landing their business had been a coup last year, and keeping it meant staying flawless. Ray rolled up his sleeves. "Guess we're working overtime, boys." Rex barked once, enthusiastic. Mufasa yawned, clearly unimpressed by capitalism. As Ray moved down the rows, checking irrigation lines and misting schedules, his mind wandered. Not to romance, but to responsibility. He wanted a family someday, sure, but he wasn't about to play knight in shining armor for someone who saw him as a safety net. He'd worked too hard for that. He was adjusting a grow light when a soft thud made him turn. Rex had knocked over a tray of seedlings in his quest for attention. Soil scattered like confetti. "Rex!" Ray lunged, catching the tray before it hit the floor completely. "Buddy, you're killing me." Rex wagged his tail harder, oblivious to guilt. Mufasa, sensing opportunity, pounced on Rex's tail, sending the dog skittering across the floor in a tangle of paws and fur. Ray laughed despite himself. "You two are chaos incarnate." He set the tray back, salvaging what he could, and glanced at Mufasa. The bobcat was licking his paw, but something about his posture made Ray pause. Lately, Mufasa had been off, less playful, more lethargic. Today's burst of energy was the first in days. Ray frowned. Maybe it's time for a checkup. He'd taken Mufasa to the vet when he first found him 2 years ago, a scrawny kitten crying in the woods behind the greenhouse. Ray hadn't hesitated then, and he wouldn't now. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to the contact he hadn't used in months. Alice Green, DVM. Alice had been professional, warm, and, if Ray was honest, striking. Not in the glossy magazine way, but in the kind of way that made you notice her twice. He remembered her laugh, bright and unpretentious, and the way she'd handled Mufasa like she'd been born to calm wild things. Ray shook off the thought. This wasn't about him. It was about Mufasa. He tapped the number, listening to the ring. "Green Valley Veterinary Clinic," a cheerful voice answered. "Hi, this is Ray Connors," he said. "I brought in a bobcat a couple years ago." "Mufasa?" "Oh, I remember Mufasa," the voice said, amused. "How's our little wild child?" Ray smiled despite himself. "Acting a little off. Thought I'd bring him in." "Sure thing. We've got openings tomorrow afternoon. 2 o'clock work." "Perfect. Great. See you then." Ray hung up, sliding the phone into his pocket. "Tomorrow, then." He looked around the greenhouse, the steady hum of heaters and the earthy scent wrapping around him like a familiar blanket. Outside, the world was cold and uncertain. In here, things grew because he made sure they did. Ray crouched to scratch Rex behind the ears. "Big day tomorrow, buddy. You're coming too." Rex barked in agreement. Mufasa flicked his tail, regal and aloof. Ray straightened, rolling his shoulders. A new year, a big order, and a vet visit. Nothing dramatic. Nothing complicated. just the way he liked it. For now. Chapter 2. The vet visit. The next afternoon, Ray loaded Rex into the truck first. The golden retriever bounded in like he owned the passenger seat, tail wagging so hard it thumped against the dashboard. Mufasa, on the other hand, was less cooperative. Ray crouched beside the carrier, trying to coax the bobcat inside. Come on, pal. It's just a quick checkup. Mufasa stared at him with the disdain of a monarch being asked to ride coach. Ray sighed. Fine. Treats first. He dangled a strip of dried chicken near the carrier's opening. Mufasa sniffed, considered, and then, because bribery worked even on royalty, slipped inside. Ray latched the door before the bobcat could change his mind. Victory, he muttered, hoisting the carrier into the truck bed. The drive to Green Valley Veterinary Clinic was short, but Rex made it feel like a parade. Every passing car earned a bark, every stoplight a whine of impatience. Ray shook his head, amused. When he pulled into the clinic's lot, the winter sun glinted off the glass doors. Inside, the waiting room looked warm and inviting, with cheerful posters of smiling pets and shelves lined with treats. Ray carried Mufasa in, Rex trotting proudly at his side like an ambassador. The receptionist looked up and grinned. Mr. Connors, right? And wow, that's a bobcat. Ray smiled. Mufasa. He's a handful. Before the receptionist could respond, a voice floated from the back, bright, warm, and unmistakably familiar. Is that my favorite wild child? Ray turned, and there she was, Alice Green, in a navy scrub top and jeans, her hair pulled into a practical ponytail. She had the kind of smile that made the room feel sunnier, even in January. Ray felt something shift, just a flicker, but enough to make him stand straighter. Mufasa's been acting off, he said, lifting the carrier slightly. Figured you'd know what's going on. Alice approached, her eyes lighting up at the sight of the bobcat. Still gorgeous, she said softly, peering through the carrier door. And Rex, you brought the whole crew. Rex wagged his tail like he'd just been complimented by royalty. Alice crouched to scratch behind his ears. You're a good boy, aren't you? Ray chuckled. He thinks so. Alice stood, meeting Ray's gaze. Let's get Mufasa checked out. The exam room smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender. Alice opened the carrier, and Mufasa stepped out with the grace of someone tolerating inconvenience. Vitals first, Alice said, slipping on gloves. She moved with practiced ease, her hands gentle but firm as she checked the bobcat's ears, teeth, and paws. Ray watched, leaning against the counter. He's been sleeping more than usual, not eating as much. Alice nodded, listening. Could be seasonal, or stress. Any changes at home? Ray shrugged. Just the usual chaos. Rex knocking things over, Mufasa pretending he's above it all. Alice smiled, a quick flash of amusement. Sounds like a sitcom. Pretty much, Ray said, minus the laugh track. As Alice worked, Mufasa decided to make things interesting. With a sudden twist, he leapt onto the counter, scattering a stack of charts. One fluttered to the floor, landing near Rex, who promptly slobbered on it like it was a love letter. Alice laughed, scooping up the damp paper. Well, that's one way to leave your mark. Ray groaned. Sorry. He's spirited. I like spirited, Alice said, her tone light but layered. Ray caught the flicker of something in her eyes. Curiosity, maybe. Interest. He wasn't sure, and he wasn't about to assume. Alice finished the exam, jotting notes. He looks healthy overall. I'll run a quick blood panel to be sure, but I think he's fine. Just a little winter slowdown. Ray exhaled, relieved. Good to hear. Alice glanced up. You take good care of him. Ray shrugged, suddenly aware of how that sounded. Found him in the woods. Figured he deserved a shot. Alice's smile softened. That says a lot about you. Ray felt heat creep up his neck. He wasn't used to compliments that weren't about his basil. Alice packed up her tools. Results will be ready tomorrow. I'll call you. Ray nodded, lifting the carrier. Thanks, Alice. She walked him to the door, Rex trotting happily between them. Drive safe, she said, her voice warm. Ray stepped into the cold air, the door closing behind him. For a moment he stood still, the winter breeze biting his cheeks. He'd come for Mufasa. He was leaving with something else, a thought he couldn't quite shake. Alice Green wasn't like the women he'd met before. She didn't look at him like a safety net or a stepping stone. She looked at him like, well, like she saw him. Ray climbed into the truck, Rex settling in with a satisfied sigh. Mufasa blinked from his carrier, unimpressed by human epiphanies. Ray started the engine, a smile tugging at his lips. Tomorrow he'd get the test results, and maybe, just maybe, he'd find a reason to stop by again. Chapter 3. Unexpected encounters. Saturday morning dawned bright and cold, the kind of winter day that made the air feel sharp enough to slice through thoughts. Ray had spent the early hours tending to his greenhouse, checking misting schedules and coaxing delicate Thai basil into thriving. The big order for Lujardin was nearly ready, and he felt that quiet satisfaction that came from things going right. By mid-morning, he decided to reward himself with a trip to the farmer's market. He didn't need much, just fresh bread and maybe some local honey, but he liked the atmosphere. People milling about, the the scent of baked goods mingling with wood smoke, the chatter of vendors hawking their wares. It was a slice of small-town life he rarely indulged in. Rex, of course, was thrilled. The golden retriever practically vibrated with excitement as Ray clipped on his leash. "You're acting like we're going to Disneyland," Ray muttered, locking the greenhouse door behind him. The market was bustling when they arrived. Stalls lined the square, bright with winter produce and handmade crafts. Ray parked near the edge and stepped out, Rex bounding ahead like a furry missile. Ray barely had time to grab the leash before Rex lunged toward a stand stacked with baguettes. "Rex!" Ray yanked back, but not before the dog managed to snag one loaf in his teeth. The vendor, a stout man with a booming laugh, shook his head. "Guess he's got good taste." Ray handed over a few bills, muttering apologies, while Rex pranced like a conquering hero with his prize. "You're lucky you're cute," Ray said, breaking off a piece for him before tucking the rest under his arm. He was juggling the bread, a jar of honey, and a bundle of herbs when he heard a familiar voice. "Ray Connors." He turned and nearly dropped everything. Alice Green stood a few feet away, bundled in a wool coat and scarf, her cheeks pink from the cold. She carried a canvas tote filled with vegetables, and her smile was as bright as the winter sun. "Hey," Ray said, adjusting his grip on the bread. "Didn't expect to see you here." Alice's gaze flicked to Rex, who was now trying to charm a child out of a cookie. "Looks like someone's enjoying himself." Ray groaned. "He's a menace. I swear he thinks every outing is a buffet." Alice laughed, the sound warm and easy. "I like a dog with ambition." Ray smiled, feeling that flicker again, the one he tried to ignore yesterday. "What brings you here? Stocking up for the clinic?" "Partly," Alice said, "and partly because I like fresh food. There's something about picking out your own produce that feels grounding." Ray nodded. "I get that." For a moment, they stood in comfortable silence, the hum of the market around them. Then Alice tilted her head. "You look like you're about to lose that bread." Ray glanced down at his precarious load. "You're not wrong. Here." Alice stepped closer, holding out her tote. "I've got room." Ray hesitated, then slid the honey and herbs into her bag. "Thanks." "No problem." She smiled, then added, "There's a coffee stand over there. Best cinnamon lattes in town. Want to join me?" Ray blinked. He hadn't planned on lingering, but the idea of coffee with Alice sounded better than rushing home to paperwork. "Sure," he said. "Lead the way." The stand was tucked between a flower vendor and a stall selling handmade soaps. Alice ordered a cinnamon latte. Ray went for black coffee, no frills. They found a spot near a wooden bench, Rex flopping at their feet like he'd run a marathon. Alice sipped her drink, eyes crinkling in pleasure. Worth every penny. Ray took a sip of his own, the heat chasing away the chill. "Not bad," he admitted. They talked easily about the market, about winter-slowing business, about the quirks of small-town life. Alice teased him about his greenhouse obsession. Ray countered with jokes about her clinic being a magnet for drama. She laughed, and he found himself wanting to hear that sound again. When the conversation lulled, Alice glanced at him, her expression thoughtful. "There's a charity event next weekend," she said. "Pet adoption fundraiser. I'm helping organize it. You should come." Ray raised a brow. "Me? I've already got a dog and a bobcat. Pretty sure I'm maxed out." Alice grinned. "You don't have to adopt. Just show up. It's fun. And it helps the shelter." Ray considered. He wasn't big on social events, but the idea of seeing Alice again made the decision easy. "All right," he said. "Count me in." Her smile widened, and something warm settled in his chest. They finished their coffee, exchanged goodbyes, and Ray walked back to his truck with Rex trotting proudly beside him. As he loaded the bread and honey, he caught himself smiling like an idiot. He'd come for groceries. He was leaving with an invitation, and a feeling he hadn't had in a long time. Maybe this year was going to be different. Chapter 4. Charity Chaos. The following Saturday dawned gray and brisk, the kind of day that promised either cozy charm or complete disaster. Ray wasn't sure which category a pet adoption fundraiser fell into, but he'd agreed to go, and Ray Connors was a man who kept his word. He parked near the community center, Rex practically vibrating in the back seat. The golden retriever had sensed social event and translated it as infinite belly rubs. Ray clipped on his leash, grabbed a donation envelope, and opened the door. Rex launched out like a furry cannonball. "Easy," Ray muttered, tightening his grip as Rex made a beeline for a cluster of balloons tied to a table. The dog barked at them like they were intruders, tail wagging furiously. The event was already buzzing. Volunteers in bright t-shirts wrangled puppies, kittens mewed from playpens, and a raffle table boasted prizes ranging from gourmet pet treats to a year's supply of kibble. Ray scanned the crowd and spotted Alice near the registration booth. She wore a forest green sweater under a quilted vest, her hair loose today, catching the light when she laughed at something a volunteer said. Ray felt that now familiar flicker in his chest, the one that had been growing since the market. Alice turned, her eyes finding his almost instantly. Her smile widened. "You made it." Ray grinned. "Wouldn't miss it." Rex insisted. As if on cue, Rex wagged his tail so hard it nearly knocked over a donation jar. Alice laughed, stepping closer. He's got perfect timing. Ray handed her the envelope. For the shelter. Thank you, Alice said, tucking it into a box. Every bit helps. Before Ray could respond, chaos erupted. A tiny beagle pup wriggled free from a volunteer's arms and bolted across the floor like a furry comet, straight toward the refreshment table. The volunteer lunged, missed, and the pup skidded under the tablecloth, sending paper plates flying. Alice groaned. Not again. Ray didn't think. He moved. Dropping Rex's leash, he ducked under the table, emerging with the runaway pup squirming in his arms. Gotcha, he said, grinning as the volunteer sighed in relief. Alice stared at him, amused and impressed. You're fast. Ray shrugged, handing the pup back. Occupational hazard. I chase things for a living. Alice raised a brow. Plants don't run. Not yet, Ray said deadpan. But give science time. She laughed, and the sound warmed him more than the heating vents ever could. The rest of the afternoon unfolded like a sitcom. Rex tried to join a puppy playpen. Mufasa's photo on Ray's phone became a conversation starter for curious volunteers, and Ray somehow ended up manning the raffle table when a volunteer bailed. Alice floated between stations, her energy infectious, her laugh carrying across the room like sunlight. At one point, she stopped beside him, brushing a stray hair from her cheek. You're good at this, she said. Selling raffle tickets? Ray asked. Helping, Alice said simply. You didn't have to jump in. Ray shrugged. You looked like you needed backup. Alice's smile softened. Thanks. They stood there for a beat, the noise of the event fading around them. Ray felt the urge to say something. Anything. But before he could, Rex barked loudly, startling a toddler and sending a stack of flyers fluttering like confetti. Alice laughed again, shaking her head. Your dog might be the life of the party. Ray groaned. He's going to demand a trophy. By the time the event wound down, Ray was tired but oddly exhilarated. He'd spent hours in a swirl of fur, laughter, and mild chaos, and he didn't hate it, not even a little. As he helped Alice carry a box of leftover supplies to her car, she glanced at him. Thanks for coming today. Really? Ray smiled. Anytime. Alice hesitated, then said, You know, I owe you coffee. For saving the beagle. Ray grinned. I'll hold you to that. She laughed, sliding the box into her trunk. Deal. Ray walked back to his truck, Rex trotting beside him like a conquering hero. He felt lighter somehow, like the day had shifted something inside him. Maybe this wasn't just a fundraiser. Maybe it was the start of something else. Chapter 5. Stirring the pot, Ray woke early Monday, the greenhouse humming softly like a living machine. The big order for Le Jardin was nearly complete. Rows of Thai basil, purple shiso, and lime leaves standing proud under the grow lights. He moved through the aisles with practiced ease, misting the delicate herbs and checking soil moisture. Everything smelled fresh, earthy, alive. He was adjusting the irrigation timer when his phone buzzed. A text from Alice. Alice, morning. Do you still have those calming herbs you mentioned? Thinking of making tea blends for the clinic. Ray smiled, thumb hovering over the screen. He typed back, Ray, got plenty. Swing by any time today. Her reply came fast. Alice, perfect. Around noon? Ray stared at the message longer than necessary, feeling that flicker again, the one that had been growing since the fundraiser. He typed, Ray, see you then. By noon, the greenhouse was spotless, or as spotless as a working greenhouse could be. Ray had even brushed stray soil from the counters, which felt ridiculous because Alice was a vet, not a neat freak. Still, he couldn't shake the urge to make the place look good. Rex sensed the shift in energy and parked himself by the door like a furry sentinel. Mufasa lounged on a shelf, tail flicking lazily, as if amused by Ray's sudden attention to aesthetics. When Alice arrived, the winter sun caught in her hair, turning it into threads of copper. She wore a cream sweater under a navy jacket, jeans tucked into boots, and carried a canvas tote like she just stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. Effortless, practical, and somehow stunning. Wow, she said, stepping inside. This place is incredible. Ray grinned. Controlled chaos. Like your clinic, I bet. Alice laughed, moving closer to inspect a row of basil. Smells amazing. You could bottle this and sell it as therapy. Not a bad idea, Ray said, though I'd have to figure out how to keep Rex from eating the profits. As if on cue, Rex wagged his tail and nudged Alice's hand for attention. She crouched to scratch behind his ears. He's a sweetheart. Don't let him fool you, Ray said. He's a bread thief. Alice looked up, amused. Bread thief. Farmer's market, Ray explained. One baguette didn't survive. Alice laughed, the sound warm and easy. I like him even more now. Ray led her to the workbench, where bundles of herbs lay neatly arranged. Chamomile, lemon balm, lavender, he said, pointing. All good for calming teas. Alice leaned in, inhaling the scent. Perfect. These will be a hit with stressed-out pet parents. Ray watched her fingers brush the leaves, delicate and sure. He liked that about her, how she moved with purpose, like someone who knew exactly what she wanted. You ever think about doing this full-time? Alice asked suddenly, glancing at him. Supplying teas, I mean. Ray shrugged. Thought about it. But I like the variety. Keeps things interesting. Alice nodded, then smiled. Speaking of interesting. What's that? She pointed to a cluster of deep purple leaves. Shiso, Ray said. Japanese herb. Peppery, a little minty. Alice touched a leaf lightly. Beautiful. Ray felt a strange urge to impress her, which was ridiculous because this wasn't a date. It was herbs. Still, he found himself saying, "Want to see something cool?" Alice raised a brow. Always. Ray moved to the irrigation control panel. Watch this. He pressed a button and instantly regretted it. The sprinkler system hissed to life with a vengeance, spraying a fine mist that turned into a full-on shower. Alice squealed, laughing as droplets clung to her hair and sweater. Ray lunged for the panel, fumbling with buttons until the system shut off. Silence fell, broken only by Rex shaking himself like a furry rainstorm. Ray turned, mortified. I meant to show you the misting cycle, not that. Alice laughed harder, wiping water from her face. Well, that was refreshing. Ray grabbed a towel from a hook and handed it to her. I'm so sorry. Don't be, Alice said, still smiling. I needed a wake-up. Ray chuckled, relief flooding him. Guess I nailed that. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world narrowed to the space between them. The scent of herbs, the warmth of laughter, the droplets clinging to her hair like tiny jewels. Ray felt something shift, deep and undeniable. Alice looked away first, draping the towel over her shoulders. So, about those teas. Ray cleared his throat, forcing his brain back to business. Right? Let me bundle these up for you. As he worked, Alice wandered the greenhouse, asking questions about rare herbs and growth cycles. Her curiosity was genuine, her laughter easy, and Ray found himself answering with more enthusiasm than usual. When she finally left, tote filled with calming herbs, Ray stood in the doorway watching her walk to her car. Rex sat beside him, tail wagging like he knew something Ray didn't. Ray exhaled slowly. He'd been fine being single, content even, but now he wasn't so sure. Chapter 6. Dinner plans. Ray was halfway through trimming a row of basil when his phone buzzed. He wiped his hands on a towel and glanced at the screen. A text from Alice. Alice, hey, thanks again for the herbs. They were a hit at the clinic. I owe you dinner, how about Thursday? Casual, nothing fancy. Ray stared at the message, feeling his pulse tick up a notch. Dinner. With Alice. He typed back. Ray sounds great. What time? Alice, 7. My place. Hope you like pasta. Ray grinned. Pasta was fine. Alice was better. He confirmed, then set the phone down, suddenly aware of Rex watching him like he knew something was up. Don't start, Ray said, pointing at the dog. It's just dinner. Rex wagged his tail like sure, buddy. Thursday arrived faster than Ray expected. He spent the day juggling deliveries and mentally debating what casual meant. Jeans? Button down? He settled on dark jeans and a crisp shirt, safe but not overdressed. At least, he hoped. By 7, he was standing at Alice's door with a bottle of wine in one hand and a knot of nerves in his stomach. He knocked, and the door swung open to reveal Alice in a soft gray sweater and jeans, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked effortless and stunning. Hey, she said, smiling. Come in. Ray stepped inside, taking in the cozy warmth of her home. The scent of garlic and tomatoes filled the air, mingling with something sweet, maybe basil. He grinned. Smells amazing. Hope you're hungry, Alice said, leading him to the kitchen. A pot simmered on the stove, steam curling upward like a promise. Ray set the wine on the counter. Thought this might go with pasta. Alice glanced at the label and smiled. Perfect. They moved easily around the kitchen, Alice stirring sauce while Ray sliced bread. Conversation flowed about work, about the fundraiser, about Rex's latest antics. Alice laughed often, and Ray found himself leaning into that sound like sunlight. Then came the twist. Alice set plates on the table and said, I hope you don't mind. It's just us. Ray blinked. Just us. Alice frowned slightly. Yeah, why? Ray hesitated, then chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. Don't laugh. I thought this was a group thing, like a volunteer dinner. Alice stared at him, then burst out laughing. You thought I invited you to a committee meeting? Ray groaned. I didn't want to assume. Alice laughed harder, wiping tears from her eyes. Oh, that's priceless. Ray grinned sheepishly. Glad I could entertain. When the laughter faded, something softer settled between them, a warmth that felt different, deeper. Alice looked at him, her smile lingering. For the record, I'm glad it's just us. Ray met her gaze, something sparking in his chest. Me too. Dinner was easy and delicious, pasta tossed with fresh herbs, crusty bread, and wine that loosened conversation into something more personal. Alice talked about her dream of expanding the clinic, about the challenges of dating when men expected her to give up her career. Ray listened, really listened, And when she paused, he said quietly, "Sounds like you've had to fight to be seen." Alice's eyes softened. "Yeah, most guys want the idea of me, not me." Ray nodded slowly. "I get that." She tilted her head. "Do you?" Ray hesitated, then said, "I've been the safety net before. The guy women call when they're tired of bad choices. I'm not interested in being someone's rescue plan." Alice studied him for a moment, then smiled. A small, genuine smile that felt like trust. "Good, because I don't need rescuing." Ray smiled back. "Didn't think you did." The rest of the evening unfolded in laughter and quiet moments, the kind that linger long after plates are cleared. When Ray finally stood to leave, Alice walked him to the door. "Thanks for coming," she said softly. "Thanks for inviting me," Ray replied. For a heartbeat, they stood there, the air charged with something unspoken. Then Alice smiled, warm and steady. "Drive safe." Ray nodded, stepping into the cool night. As he walked to his truck, Rex's head popped up from the back seat, tail thumping like a drum. Ray chuckled, sliding behind the wheel. He'd come for pasta. He was leaving with something else, a sense that this wasn't just dinner. It was the start of something real. Chapter 7. Rumors and Realizations. By Monday morning, Ray was back in the greenhouse, trimming basil and mentally replaying Thursday night like a highlight reel. Dinner with Alice had been easy, warm, real. He hadn't felt that in years. No games, no hidden agendas, just two people talking like equals. He was still smiling when Rex trotted in with a newspaper clamped in his mouth. Ray frowned. "Where did you, never mind." He pried the paper free and glanced at the front page. That's when he saw it. "Local vet hosts fundraiser. Spotted with greenhouse owner?" The headline wasn't scandalous, but the photo beneath it showed Alice laughing at the adoption event. Ray in the background holding a raffle ticket like a guilty accomplice. The caption read, "Are sparks flying between the town's favorite plant guy and our beloved vet?" Ray groaned. "Seriously?" Rex wagged his tail like, "You're famous now." Ray tossed the paper aside, but the damage was done. In a town this size, gossip spread faster than mint in summer. By noon, his phone buzzed with texts from customers. "So, you and Alice? Congrats, man. Does this mean the clinic gets free herbs?" Ray ignored them, focusing on his work, but the whispers followed him everywhere. At the supply store, the cashier winked. At the coffee shop, the barista grinned. Even his delivery guy asked if Rex was picking out tuxedos yet. Ray tried to laugh it off, but a nagging thought crept in. What if Alice hates this? He found out sooner than expected. Late afternoon, his phone buzzed again, this time with Alice's name. He answered quickly. Hey, Alice said, her voice calm but edged with amusement. "So, apparently we're the talk of the town." Ray winced. "You saw the paper? And the texts?" Alice said. "My receptionist asked if we're registering for gifts." Ray groaned. "I'm sorry. I didn't think helping at the fundraiser would turn into a headline." Alice laughed softly. "It's not your fault. Small towns love a good story." Ray hesitated. "Does it bother you?" There was a pause. Then Alice said, "Honestly? No. Let them talk. I know the truth." Ray felt something ease in his chest. "Good. But," Alice added, her tone teasing now, "if we're going to be the town's favorite couple, we should at least get coffee again." Ray grinned. "Deal." He was still smiling when the next curveball hit. That evening, as he locked up the greenhouse, a sleek black car pulled into the lot. Ray frowned, watching as a man stepped out, tall, polished, wearing a coat that probably cost more than Ray's truck tires. "Ray Connors?" the man asked, voice smooth as glass. "Yeah," Ray said slowly. "I'm Mark," the man said. "Alice's ex." Ray blinked. "Okay." Mark smiled, a practiced, charming smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just wanted to say hello. And make sure you know Alice deserves someone who can keep up." Ray stiffened. "Pretty sure she decides that." Mark's smile tightened. "Sure. Just don't waste her time." With that, he slid back into his car and drove off, leaving Ray standing in the cold, anger simmering under his skin. He hated guys like that, the ones who treated women like trophies, like something to win or lose. Alice wasn't a prize. She was Alice, independent, strong, real. Ray locked the door, jaw set. He wasn't going to let some smug ex dictate anything. But the encounter left a question burning in his mind. Was he enough for her? Ray drove home, Rex snoring in the back seat, Mufasa glaring from his carrier like royalty in exile. He tried to shake off the doubt, but it clung like burrs. Tomorrow he'd see Alice. He'd tell her about Mark. And maybe, just maybe, he'd find out where they really stood. Chapter 8. The Big Order. Ray's phone buzzed before sunrise, jolting him awake. He squinted at the screen, heart skipping when he saw the message from Le Jardin. "Can you handle a rush order? Full assortment of exotic herbs for Saturday's tasting event. Double quantity." Ray sat up, adrenaline kicking in. Double quantity. For Le Jardin, that meant flawless execution, no delays, no excuses. He typed back, "Ray, consider it done." He tossed the phone aside and swung his legs out of bed. Rex thumped his tail against the floor like, "Let's go, boss." Mufasa yawned from his perch on the dresser, unimpressed by capitalism. By mid-morning, the greenhouse was a hive of activity. Ray moved like a man possessed, checking misting cycles, adjusting grow lights, calculating harvest schedules. He barely noticed the cold creeping through the glass panes. This was his world. Precision, timing, control. Except today, control felt slippery. The order was huge, and the clock was ticking. He was elbow deep in a tray of Thai basil when his phone buzzed again. Alice. Alice. How's your day? Ray stared at the message, torn between stress and the sudden urge to hear her voice. He typed back, Ray busy. Big order for Lujardin. Might be pulling an all-nighter. Her reply came fast. Alice. Need backup? I make a mean cup of tea. Ray smiled despite himself. He typed, Ray, tea sounds like a lifesaver. If you're serious, come by. An hour later, Alice walked into the greenhouse carrying a thermos and 2 mugs. She wore a navy coat dusted with snow, her cheeks pink from the cold. Ray felt something ease in his chest just seeing her. Thought you could use this, she said, holding up the thermos. Ray grinned. You're officially my favorite person today. Alice laughed, setting the mugs on the workbench. So, what's the crisis? Ray explained the order, the timing, the pressure. Alice listened, nodding, then said, Sounds like you've got it under control. Ray shrugged. Mostly. Just a lot. Alice poured tea, the steam curling like comfort. Then let's make it less stressful. She stayed, moving easily among the rows, asking questions about the herbs, laughing when Rex tried to help by carrying a stray glove in his mouth. At one point, Alice crouched to examine a tray of shiso, her hair falling forward in a coppery curtain. Ray found himself watching her, the curve of her smile, the way she seemed at home even in his world of soil and humidity. You're staring, Alice said suddenly, glancing up with a teasing grin. Ray blinked, heat creeping up his neck. Just making sure you don't drown the shiso. Alice laughed, shaking her head. Smooth. Ray chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. I'm better with plants. Good thing I like plants, Alice said softly. Their eyes met, and the air shifted warm, charged, like the moment before rain. Ray felt the pull, deep and undeniable. He stepped closer, heart thudding, and for a breathless second, it felt inevitable. Then Rex barked, loud, joyous, and completely oblivious, sending a tray of seedlings crashing to the floor. Alice jumped, laughing as soil scattered like confetti. Guess he's not a fan of dramatic tension. Ray groaned, grabbing a towel. Rex, you're killing me. Alice laughed harder, wiping dirt from her jeans. Well, that broke the mood. Ray chuckled, though part of him wanted to strangle his dog. Rain check. Alice smiled, eyes warm. Definitely. By the time Alice left, the greenhouse smelled like tea and laughter, and Ray felt lighter despite the looming deadline. He had work to do, hours of it. But for the first time in days, the pressure didn't feel so heavy. Because somewhere between the herbs and the chaos, something had shifted. And Ray wasn't sure he wanted it to shift back. Chapter 9. Conflict brews. Ray was running on caffeine and adrenaline. The greenhouse looked like a war zone. Trays everywhere, misting cycles humming, and Rex sprawled in the middle like a furry foreman supervising the chaos. The Lujardin order was nearly ready, but Ray's nerves were frayed. He was double-checking the lime leaves when his phone buzzed. Alice. Alice. Hey, quick heads up. Mark stopped by the clinic today. Ray froze, the name hitting like a cold splash. Mark. The smug X with the designer coat and the warning about keeping up. Ray clenched his jaw, typing back. Ray, everything okay? Her reply came after a pause. Alice, yeah. He wanted to talk. Said he was checking in. Ray stared at the screen, irritation simmering. Checking in? What was that supposed to mean? He shoved the phone into his pocket, trying to focus on the herbs, but the thought gnawed at him. Was Mark trying to win her back? And worse, did Alice want him to? By late afternoon, Ray was wound tight. He'd replayed Thursday night 100 times, wondering if he'd imagined the connection. Maybe Alice saw him as a friend. Maybe Mark was the kind of guy she was used to. Polished, wealthy, the opposite of a man who spent his days elbow deep in soil. He was so lost in thought, he didn't notice Mufasa slinking toward the open door until it was too late. Wait, Mufasa! Ray lunged, but the bobcat darted outside like a streak of tawny lightning. Rex barked, thrilled by the sudden drama, and bolted after him. Ray cursed, dropping his gloves and sprinting across the lot. Snow crunched under his boots as he chased 2 blurs of fur toward the tree line. Mufasa! Rex, get back here! Ray shouted, breath puffing in the cold. The scene was pure chaos. Ray slipping on ice, Rex bounding like a golden missile, Mufasa leaping onto a low branch with regal disdain. Ray finally managed to grab Rex's collar, panting like he'd run a marathon. Great, he muttered, glaring at the bobcat perched above him. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Mufasa flicked his tail, unimpressed. Ray coaxed, pleaded, bribed with treats. Nothing worked. Finally, he climbed the branch himself, snagging Mufasa with all the grace of a man who'd rather be anywhere else. By the time he got back to the greenhouse, he was soaked, muddy, and questioning every life choice that led to this moment. He was toweling off Rex when his phone buzzed again. Alice. Alice. Still want coffee tomorrow? Ray stared at the message, heart thudding. Coffee. After Mark's visit. After his own spiral of doubt. He typed back. Ray, yeah, definitely. But as he set the phone down, the question lingered like a shadow. Was he enough for her? Or just a distraction until something shinier came along? Ray glanced at Mufasa, who was licking his paw like royalty. Rex wagged his tail, oblivious to existential crises. Guess we'll find out, Ray muttered, staring into the humid glow of the greenhouse. Chapter 10. Clearing the air, the coffee shop was warm and bustling, a refuge from the biting January wind. Ray pushed through the door, the bell chiming overhead, and scanned the room until he spotted Alice at a corner table. She was stirring her drink absent-mindedly, her expression thoughtful, almost guarded. Ray's chest tightened. He crossed the room, Rex free for once, and slid into the chair opposite her. Hey! Alice looked up, her smile quick but not as bright as usual. Hey! For a moment, silence stretched between them, filled only by the hum of conversation and the hiss of the espresso machine. Ray cleared his throat. Thanks for meeting me. Alice nodded. Of course. Ray wrapped his hands around his coffee cup, searching for the right words. He wasn't great at this, feelings, vulnerability, but he knew he couldn't keep circling the doubt that had been eating at him since Mark showed up. Look, he began, voice low. I need to ask, are you okay? With all the gossip? With everything? Alice's brows lifted slightly. You mean the newspaper circus? Ray managed a wry smile. Yeah. And Mark? Her expression shifted, surprise, then something sharper. He came to see you? Ray nodded. Showed up at the greenhouse. Told me not to waste your time. Alice's eyes flashed. He had no right. Ray shrugged, trying to keep his tone even. I don't want to be a rebound, Alice, or a distraction until something shinier comes along. Alice stared at him, then set her spoon down with deliberate care. Ray, she said softly, do you really think that's what this is? Ray hesitated, the words sticking in his throat. I don't know. I've been that guy before, the safety net. The one women call when they're tired of bad choices. I'm not interested in playing that role again. Alice leaned forward, her gaze steady, unwavering. You're not a safety net. You're you. And I like you, Ray. Not because you're convenient. Not because you're some rescue plan. Because you're real. Ray felt something loosen inside him, like a knot finally untangling. You mean that? Alice's smile softened, warm and certain. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. Relief washed through him, mingled with something deeper. Hope, sharp and bright. He exhaled slowly, a laugh escaping. Guess I needed to hear that. Alice reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. Guess I needed to say it. For a moment, they sat like that, hands touching, the noise of the cafe fading to a distant hum. Ray felt the weight of doubt lift, replaced by something steadier, stronger. Alice squeezed his hand lightly, then pulled back with a teasing smile. So, now that we've cleared the air, how about we talk about something less dramatic? Like why Rex thinks baguettes are a food group. Ray chuckled, the tension melting away. He's got refined taste. Alice laughed, and the sound was like sunlight breaking through clouds. For the first time in days, Ray felt certain about her, about them, about the fact that this wasn't temporary. It was the start of something real. Chapter 11, The Grand Gesture. Ray had never been the grand gesture type. He wasn't about flashy moves or sweeping declarations. But as he stood in the middle of his greenhouse, stringing fairy lights along the rafters, he realized this was his version of it. Quiet, thoughtful, rooted in the world he loved. The idea had come to him after coffee with Alice. Clearing the air had felt like lifting a weight, and now he wanted to celebrate. Not with a crowded restaurant or a cliché bouquet, but with something personal. Something that said, I see you. I want you here in my life. He'd spent the afternoon transforming the greenhouse into something magical. Lights twinkled like stars above rows of herbs, casting a warm glow over the glass walls. A small table sat in the center, draped in linen, set with simple plates and candles. The air smelled of basil and lavender, earthy and sweet. Rex lounged nearby, tail thumping lazily, while Mufasa perched on a shelf like a furry overseer. Ray eyed them both. No chaos tonight, he warned. This is important. Rex wagged his tail like sure boss. Mufasa flicked his ear, unimpressed. Alice arrived just after sunset, her breath fogging in the cold. When Ray opened the door, her eyes widened, taking in the glow of lights and the table nestled among greenery. Ray, she breathed, stepping inside. This is beautiful. Ray felt heat creep up his neck. Figured dinner here beats another pasta night. Alice laughed softly, her gaze sweeping the space. You did all this? Every light, Ray said. Every candle. Alice smiled, something warm and tender in her eyes. You're full of surprises. Ray shrugged, trying for casual but failing. Guess I wanted to make tonight special. Dinner was simple, grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, fresh bread, but under the fairy lights, it felt like something more. They ate, talked, laughed, the conversation flowing as easily as the wine. Alice teased him about his plant obsession. Ray countered with jokes about her puppy paparazzi at the clinic. Every laugh felt like a thread pulling them closer. Halfway through dessert, a chocolate tart Ray had nervously ordered from the bakery, Rex decided to make his move. With the stealth of a golden retriever who thinks he's invisible, he snatched a piece of bread from the table and bolted. Rex! Ray lunged, but the dog was already prancing down the aisle like a champion thief. Alice laughed so hard she nearly spilled her wine. He's unstoppable. Ray groaned, returning with the soggy remains. You're lucky you're cute, he muttered, earning another laugh from Alice. As if on cue, Mufasa leapt onto the table, tail swishing dangerously close to the candles. Ray grabbed him just in time, shaking his head. I swear they planned this. Alice grinned, eyes sparkling. Best dinner entertainment ever. When the chaos settled, they lingered over the last sips of wine, the greenhouse quiet except for the hum of heaters and the soft glow of lights. Ray looked at Alice, really looked, and felt the words rise before he could stop them. I like this, he said quietly. You, us. Alice's smile softened, her gaze steady. Me too. For a moment the world held its breath. Then Ray leaned in, slow and certain, and kissed her. It wasn't fireworks or fanfare. It was warm, steady, like roots sinking deep. When they pulled back, Alice's smile was brighter than the fairy lights. About time, she whispered. Ray laughed, relief and joy tangling in his chest. Yeah, he said. About time. Chapter 12. New beginnings. February crept in quietly, the frost softening under early hints of spring. Ray stood in his greenhouse, watching sunlight spill across rows of herbs like liquid gold. Business was thriving. Le Jardin had placed another order, and 2 new restaurants had joined his client list. But for once, work wasn't the only thing on his mind. Alice was coming by later, not for tea herbs or a quick chat, but to talk about something bigger. Us. The word felt strange and thrilling all at once. When she arrived, Rex greeted her like a long-lost friend, tail wagging so hard it nearly knocked over a tray of seedlings. Alice laughed, crouching to scratch his ears. He's always this happy to see me. Ray grinned. He's got good taste. Mufasa appeared next, leaping onto a shelf with regal disdain. Alice glanced up, amused. And His Majesty still thinks he owns the place. Pretty much, Ray said. You're lucky he approves of you. Alice laughed, brushing snow from her coat. So, about what we talked about. Ray nodded, heart thudding. Blending our lives? Alice smiled, warm and steady. Yeah, I've been thinking, I like what we have. I want more of it. Ray exhaled slowly, relief and joy tangling in his chest. Me too. They moved to the workbench, mugs of tea steaming between them. Conversation flowed, about schedules, about making time for each other, about the logistics of 2 demanding careers. Alice was practical, honest, and Ray loved that about her. No drama, no games, just real talk. Biggest challenge? Alice said, grinning. Your first squad and mine. Ray chuckled. Rex will love any excuse for more chaos. Mufasa might need therapy. Alice laughed, eyes crinkling. We'll figure it out. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of small adjustments and big laughs. Alice started leaving a toothbrush at Ray's place. Ray stocked her favorite tea in his kitchen. They traded dinners, sometimes pasta at her house, sometimes grilled veggies in the greenhouse under fairy lights. Rex and Alice's rescue mutt became fast friends, turning every visit into a canine carnival. Mufasa remained aloof, occasionally swatting tails like a disapproving monarch. There were hiccups, of course. One night, Rex stole an entire roast chicken off the counter during a movie marathon. Another time, Mufasa escaped into Alice's clinic and had to be bribed out with deli turkey. But every mishap ended in laughter, not frustration, and that felt like its own kind of magic. One evening, as they sat on the greenhouse steps watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of rose and gold, Alice leaned against Ray's shoulder. You know, she said softly, I used to think love meant giving something up. My career, my independence, something. Ray turned, meeting her gaze. And now, Alice smiled, eyes bright. Now I know it's about finding someone who wants you exactly as you are. Ray felt his throat tighten. He brushed a strand of hair from her cheek, his voice low. Guess we both got lucky. Alice laughed softly, curling closer. Guess we did. The greenhouse hummed around them, warm and alive, and Ray realized something. This wasn't just a new chapter. It was the start of the life he'd been building toward all along. Steady, rooted, and full of light. Chapter 13. Epilogue. 1 year later, the greenhouse looked different. Not in structure, but in spirit. Fairy lights still twinkled along the rafters. Now a permanent fixture because Alice had declared them non-negotiable. The rows of herbs were fuller, richer, thriving under Ray's meticulous care. And tucked in one corner was a small seating area, a cozy nook where 2 mugs often sat side by side. Ray stood at the workbench, trimming a bouquet of fresh basil for Le Jardin. Business had doubled in the past year, thanks to word of mouth and a few glowing reviews from local chefs. He'd even started a small line of herbal teas, inspired by Alice's clinic blends. It wasn't magic, it was work. Long hours, steady hands, and the kind of persistence that made dreams grow roots. Behind him, laughter rang out. Alice was crouched near a playpen, coaxing a litter of foster kittens into behaving. Her clinic had expanded, adding a second exam room and a small adoption corner. She was busier than ever, but happier too. And Ray loved that he got to see that smile every day. Rex bounded past, tail wagging like a metronome, while Mufasa perched on a shelf, watching the chaos with regal disdain. The bobcat had mellowed slightly, but still ruled the greenhouse like a monarch. Alice's rescue mutt trotted after Rex, turning the aisle into a racetrack. "Your first squad is out of control," Alice called, laughing as Rex skidded into a tray of mint. Ray grinned, shaking his head. "Controlled chaos. Like us." Alice stood, brushing hair from her face, and crossed to him. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think dreams were magic, that they just happened." Ray set down the basil, meeting her gaze. "And now," Alice smiled, warm and certain, "now I know they're grown. Like this place. Like us." Ray felt something settle deep inside. A quiet, steady joy. He slipped an arm around her waist, pulling her close. "Guess we're doing okay." Alice laughed, leaning into him. "Better than okay." Outside, winter sunlight spilled across the glass, turning the greenhouse into a golden cocoon. Inside, life thrived. Plants, laughter, love. Not because of luck or magic, but because two people had chosen to nurture it, day by day. Ray kissed Alice's temple, his voice low, certain. "Dreams aren't magic," he said. "They're grown." And in that moment, surrounded by herbs and heartbeats, he knew this was everything he'd ever wanted.